The Bondi has consistently been one of those shoes that starts out exciting for me and then gets more and more boring as the miles pile on. But the Bondi 9 marked a substantial change from what the Bondi has typically been. So can this reliable recovery run max cushion shoe stay exciting in the long term? Let's talk about the Bondi 9 after 100 miles. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kafuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Hoka Bondi 9 after 100 miles. But before I give my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was provided to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Bondi 9 after 100 miles. And for these follow-up reviews, I like to start with how I've been using the shoe. Now, the Bondi is a max cushion shoe, one of the tallest road shoes that Hoka makes, and I've been using it as a max cushion shoe. I've been using it for short recovery runs, for longer recovery runs, and I've also been using it kind of as just a general daily trainer. I'm deep into marathon training, so having a little bit of extra cushion for those everyday runs where I'm not really worried about the pace, but I'm worried more about getting time on feet and keeping everything in a controlled, easy effort. The Bondi 9 has been a shoe that I've been reaching for again and again. I've also been using it a lot for my treadmill double miles. It's been a really nice shoe for shuffling the feet in the afternoons when I kind of really don't feel like putting in some extra time on the treadmill. But whether it's a run that I'm really excited for or a run that I'd rather not be doing, the Bondi 9 has been a shoe that I've been enjoying picking up. With the redesign for this year and with the upgrade from the normal compression molded EVA to the supercritical EVA that they're now using in this shoe, the shoe became a lot more lively, it became a lot lighter, and it became a shoe that was comfy without some of the extra literal and figurative weight that comes along with a very cushy shoe in the max cushion genre. Now, for those of you who have loved the Bondi exactly how it was and you've been buying the Bondi for years, you might not appreciate the changes as much to this newer Bondi. But for me, as someone who always liked a Bondi whenever I first got one, but then kind of lost interest as time wore on, I found that I really enjoyed this Bondi from the beginning to the end of my testing. The only one thing that I'll say though, as comfy as this shoe is, it was only comfy for me because I sized up. The Bondi is a shoe that always seems to be a little bit on the small side, at least for what I want in a comfy max cushion shoe. So while my running shoe size is typically a US men's size 9, I went with a 9.5, and that was perfect for me. I'm going to recommend for most people to do the same. Now that we've talked about how I've been using the shoe, let's talk about how I've been holding up. Now, a shoe like the Bondi 9 or any max cushion shoe is a shoe that is going to be used for a lot of miles and a lot of kind of slower, more comfortable miles. And in a shoe like this, durability is at a high premium for me. So I'm going to be looking extra close at how this shoe has been wearing down over time. And even with that closer scrutiny, I think that the Bondi 9 is holding up really well. I think from a broad perspective, the most important thing that I'm looking at in terms of how a shoe is holding up is whether I'm still having fun in the shoe, and I can say that I'm still having fun in the Bondi 9. But more specifically, I want to look at how the foam's holding up, how the outsole is holding up, and then we'll take a look at the upper as well. When we talk about the foam, I think that the way that they put together this supercritical EVA foam in this shoe is a bit more dense. It's not quite as airy as other super lightweight, super squishy, supercritical EVA foam formulations are. And so that means it's not quite as squishy and dynamic as some lighter shoes that are using supercritical EVA might be, but it also means it's not going to degrade quite as much. So what you're getting in the beginning is closer to what you're getting at 100 miles and going to be closer to what you're getting at 200 miles or more as you keep running in the shoe. And so I'm very happy with how the foam still feels cushioned to me. It still feels a little bit springier and bouncier than the Bondi has typically been in the past. And I feel like the foam really hasn't changed a dramatic amount over the course of miles that I've put into the shoe. Now, On the bottom part of the shoe, there is some exposed portions of foam that are here where the rubber is not protecting that foam. And that part is doing really well. For the most part, the exposed foam is pretty much untouched in my shoe, even after 100 miles. So I feel like the engineers over at Hoka have figured out exactly where they do and don't need to put rubber on the outsole to protect the shoe. There is one area on the right shoe in the forefoot, which is generally one of my highest wear areas, where there is some light scuffing happening onto the exposed supercritical EVA foam, but I feel like that's just purely cosmetic, and otherwise it's holding up really well. All the other areas of exposed foam are doing really nicely. They're not even that discolored from running on the roads in them. So I feel like, again, the outsole is doing a good job of protecting it. But the price for that is that the outsole is taking a bit, I don't want to say a bit of a beating, but it is showing a commensurate amount of wear for the number of miles that the shoe has on it. There is some wear happening, again, in the highest wear areas of my shoes, which for me tends to be underneath the pads of my foot in the forefoot, and then on the outer side of the heel. Some of the rubber is starting to wear down and getting kind of close to being flush with the foam that's in those areas, both on the side of the heel in the back and in the pads of the foot in the front, but not to an excessive level. It's at about to a level that I would expect, something that I've seen in other Bondi shoes, but something that I would expect to see in shoes at the 100-mile mark in the daily training category. So moving to the upper, I think things are doing really well. I don't see a single stitch out of place. I'm not seeing any fraying or wearing down of the materials. The shoe does smell like it's had 100 miles of running put into it, especially a lot of those miles happening over the summer. But I also feel like the material that they've chosen for this shoe tends to hold on to a lot of moisture, whether that's water from rain or sweat dripping down your leg and into the shoe. And so because it's holding on to moisture, it's also holding on to a little bit of odor as well. It's doing about average for what I'd expect for this type of textile fabric that they're using in the shoe. As far as stretching of the upper goes, I feel like the strength of that upper has kept everything in place. So it's molded a little bit to the shape of my foot, but not terribly so. And I haven't stretched that material at all. So it's holding up its integrity very well. So when I'm putting all of those observations together, what I'm getting is that this is a shoe that isn't showing any early signs of wear. And in fact, it's probably going to last you a little bit longer than average compared to what other daily trainers might be lasting you. And I feel like, if anything, not that I'm asking Hoka to put more rubber on the outsole by any means, but I do think that the rubber is probably going to be the first thing that goes when it comes to breaking the shoe down. Now let's wrap up the video by going over an updated buying guide, and we'll also discuss some updated alternatives for you to consider on the market. The Bondi 9 uses an upgraded foam for a new upgraded experience. And I think for the first time ever in Bondi history for me, I'm just as excited about the Bondi at 100 miles as I was when I first got the shoe. Now this shoe had originally retailed for $170, and then it got a tariff price increase up to $175, which I think is a little bit expensive for what you're getting in the shoe, but because the shoe has been out for a little while now, there is at least one color that's available for sale at a 20% discount down to $140. And I feel like that's a very good price for what you're getting in this shoe. Now, the first time I reviewed this shoe, I gave you the alternatives of the Under Armour Infinite Elite and the Topo Atmos. And I feel like those are still good alternatives to consider, but also there's two other shoes that weren't on the market at that time of the original review, and I feel like those are going to be shoes that you want to consider first. And I think the theme for the alternatives that I'm going to give you for the Bondi 9 after 100 miles is that I'm going to go with more cushion and less cushion. So I'm going to give you kind of like an array or a range of max cushion to consider for your max cushion needs. Now, the first shoe that I think we should think about when we're talking about the Bondi 9 is from New Balance, and this is the Fresh Foam More version 6. This is a shoe that from the outset has been trying to out Bondi the Bondi. It's more cushion, it's more stack height, it's more padding and puffiness. And so I feel like it's going to be an even more cushioned, relaxed, comfy dense experience than what you're getting in the Bondi 9. So if you don't like what's going on in the Bondi 9 and you want something that's more like some of the older Bondis, or you just want even more cushioning underfoot, then I'd say go with the more version 6. It retails for $160, and as far as I can see, it's still at that full retail price. I'm not sure for $20 more is the more version 6 really going to be a much better option. I'm really liking the changes to the Bondi 9, so I think it's going to really depend on what kind of max cushion shoe you like to see if that $20 is worth it. And then the next shoe that I want to talk about comes from Puma, and this is the Magnify Nitro 3. Now this is another shoe that I think is trying to out Bondi the Bondi, but it's doing it in a different way than the More is. Instead of saying more is more, they're saying less is more in the Magnify Nitro 3. Now I did all of my testing in a launch colorway, and I'm showing you now the Puma Say Sky collab version, which I think also looks really nice. But in either event, it's the same midsole foam, same engine that's driving the shoe. And whereas the Bondi is using an upgraded foam of supercritical EVA, Magnify Nitro 3 is using 100% Puma in this midsole, and the upper on this shoe is a lot stretchier, so it's not quite the almost like carpet kind of texture that we're getting in the top of the Bondi. We're getting a almost knit-like material in the toe box in this vamp area, which is very comfy, and then we have a very thin tongue on top, so there is protection from lace pressure, but it's not puffiness up here, and there is a little bit of puffiness in the heel, but it's much more restrained than what we see in the Bondi. And so I think what we're seeing is a less is more approach even in this max cushion space, in a way that I find really exciting. I find that I was using the Magnify Nitro 3 as a max cushion shoe, but I also could use it much more as a daily trainer. It's kind of in that new space, which we're starting to see emerge. New Balance has kind of been leading the way for years in this space between a huge max cushion shoe and a daily trainer. There's something kind of in the middle, and the Magnify Nitro 3 is kind of fitting in there. So again, depending on what you're looking for in your max cushion shoes, that's really how I would decide. Even though it also retails at $160, I feel like that $160 to me is an easy decision to get to that shoe. So those are my thoughts on the Bondi 9 after 100 miles. Let me know if you have any other questions in the comments down below about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today. Or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to answer any shoe questions you have over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?